Hello, I'm Kimberly Dondo, Digital Content Manager, and welcome to the In Conversation With series, a series where I speak to notable figures in the realm of financial services. Listen as they share their personal journeys, thoughts on the industry, and advice for aspiring advisors. And today I'm joined by Tom Henshaw. So, Tom, if you can give an introduction on yourself.
Yeah, hi. I'm Tom. I'm a financial planner based down in Bristol, working for Bowell Financial Planning. I've been doing the job for just under 5 years now, approaching the 5-year mark. Bit of a weird sort of route in, as most people do. We all sort of fall into this job, but no, it's going well and really enjoying it.
Okay, so what is that weird route that you took into financial services? Because I'm always very interested because no one story is the same.
No. So I originally, I was at Sheffield Uni studying biology with the intention of being a scientist, and then got to the end of my second year and realised that I loved having an idea and going into a jungle to find loads of data, but I didn't love sitting in a lab for 8 months doing data analysis afterwards.
Can I just say I relate to that? I did biomedical sciences and I felt exactly the same way.
Yeah.
I was like, I like the writing and the researching aspect, but I do not want to sit in a laboratory for the rest of my life.
No, absolutely. It really sort of, quite a few of my friends are still doing it, and I just think it shows how different people are. They love that, but no, I couldn't do it. So I sort of started thinking about what else I was going to do, without really having too many ideas. But a couple of years prior to that, my mum had actually set up her own financial planning firm back where we're from in Shropshire. And I just started talking to her more and more about that and getting to know more about it, because it's one of those jobs that most people, you tell them you're a financial planner and they sort of think, oh, that sounds boring. But actually, the more I learned about it, the more I thought, actually, that might be for me. I just started working with her after I graduated just to see, and just very quickly found that it was definitely the right thing for me. It's going out, meeting people, talking to people and problem solving, and no 2 days are the same. So it sort of removes all of that, the tedium that I didn't want in the scientific career.
Yeah. No, that I really relate to that. Obviously, you went a different path, but I do relate to that. So from your time working with your mother, like, what were the things that you learned that made you think, this is something that I want to do? Was it the fact that you'd be able to actually be client facing, talking to people? Because obviously, if you'd gone the other route and become a scientist, you would not really be dealing with people at all.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I was very lucky having that sort of into the profession, really, and obviously having a mentor that really was invested in my development. No, it was sort of great, very steep, but fantastic learning curve in terms of the amount of knowledge I got early on, both technically, having sort of no background at all in finance or anything like that, but also in terms of, I attended every meeting with her. I saw how she interacted with all of her clients from day one, which I think was invaluable experience, because it's, as we all know, this job is, you need the technical knowledge, but actually the bigger part of it is the listening skills, the explaining skills, everything that you need to deal with clients, which is far more, you can learn that in a sort of classroom environment. I have done courses and things with next gen planners and that sort of thing, but actually sort of just picking up those skills by osmosis, I think was really, really helpful to me.
Yeah, definitely. I think also it's much easier to pick up from someone you have a certain comfort level, like your mum. You can be like, you can ask her the questions and not be worried that you're going to come across stupid.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So what made you take that leap from kind of working in kind of the family business and then going out on your own and working for another company?
Yeah, so it twofold, really. girlfriend at the time, now wife, she's a vet. She was struggling. She was studying down in Bristol at the vet school. And so obviously it's quite a long degree. I've been visiting her for years and we knew we really liked it down here. So when she graduated, we decided to sort of make the move down to Bristol. At that point, we sort of end of 2019, so obviously interesting times. And I was working remotely for the family business through sort of 2020, first section of the pandemic. But I felt that I wasn't getting sort of as much client-facing exposure anymore, because it was all either remotely or just like, more administrative work for mum, because no one was seeing clients at that point. And also that I just felt that what I needed to take my career to the next step was that client facing work. So I wanted an opportunity where I would sort of have a load of clients thrown at me and sort of see if I could sink or swim. And also I think it was partly me trying to prove to myself that, I've been doing this job for a couple of years, and my mum says I'm good at it, but actually, am I? And a company that doesn't owe me anything, will they think I'm any good? Can I stand on my own 2 feet, kind of thing? So that was sort of the motivation there. And actually, it was a really lucky coincidence that at that exact time, Bowmore were looking for the same thing. They wanted a young advisor who could develop, and they had a load of clients from an advisor who'd recently left that they needed someone to look after. So it was sort of a bit of serendipity.
Yeah, no, I think that makes absolute sense. And it's almost like brave and courageous of you to be like, I'm going to step out of this shadow and go somewhere, where they don't owe you anything. They're not going to like coddle you in any way. They're just going to be like, do the work, and I assume like you flourished and you've learned a lot more. What have you learned having been in like the current place that you're at now? Yeah,
it's been brilliant because Bowmore's not a huge firm. There are 7 advisors here, but it's been great working with different advisors, different areas of expertise, and just sort of trying to sort of mine that knowledge as we go. And we've got a couple of planners. One focuses specifically on sort of divorce cases. So that sort of, it seems not an area I'd like to specialize in. Quite stressful, quite
emotional.
Exactly, yeah. But she loves it, and it's been really interesting to learn from her about those processes and things. Another who is sort of a whiz when it comes to anything that's complicated when it's in a pension. It's sort of, if you have any pension questions, you go to him. So it's been really helpful to sort of see different styles, different areas of expertise, and sort of mine that knowledge as I go along, while also developing my own style of doing things, and not sort of ending up with one area of influence. My mum, I now have sort of several different areas of influence. And then also, I suppose, even more than that, through membership of Next Gen Planners, that kind of thing, just getting as much different experience from different places as possible to try and sort of become quite a well-rounded planner, really.
Yeah. And what would you say is your kind of style now? How do you approach things? How do you approach your clients?
I would say that I try to treat every client as a brand new client, especially because I inherited a client bank that I moved into. They were existing clients of the firm. So in theory, I could have just gone in and treated them as if they'd been there forever, which a lot of them had, and just kept things going with the status quo. But I think that really it was important for me to try and not just tick along, but get to the root of these clients. What do they actually want, and then how can we make that happen? So it's a case of trying to be as holistic as possible, and not just the sort of cliche thing of not being a box ticker, but actually finding out what makes individual clients tick. And then the same goes. So we recently acquired another small firm, and most of those clients have come to me as well. So it's been the same thing again. They've had this advisor forever. He knew everything about them. Now I'm almost starting from scratch, and I'm finding it really enjoyable because it's a whole new load of people to meet and a whole new load of conversations to have. But yeah, I think really just keeping it, I always try and keep things simple for clients. I think that coming at it, as I said, been in the profession less than 5 years, and at the start I knew nothing, so I know what it's like to not understand all of these complex financial things that we all take for granted. So I do try and keep that as, jargon and things like that to a minimum as much as possible, and keep it real for them.
Yeah, no, I think that's very important. And is it daunting at all, like inheriting someone else's client bag? Like you just said, the previous people had already established a relationship and a rapport with them. And, there's always that fear that, you come in and you introduce yourself and they might be like, no, I'm going to go elsewhere. Like, is that slightly daunting for you?
Slightly. It's been a sort of double whammy really, because they're also he was a specialist medical financial planner, so all the clients, the vast majority of the clients are doctors, which comes with its own sort of set of challenges and a steep learning curve when it comes to NHS pensions and things. But actually in its own way, that's been great to kind of, as I said before, those other advisors have their specialisms. I've kind of been developing my own in the medical space, which is great. So no, it was an interesting one. As you said, taking over from him and trying to, will these people like me? They obviously liked him. But so far, so good. We've only had, I think we've only had one client leave. The rest have all been happy with me. So it's
those are good stats. Those are good stats. You said that like a lot of the clients that you have are doctors. Like, how do you approach that in terms of, is it different from other? Is it like a specialized niche? And
to an extent, there's quite a clear difference between different types of doctors. So consultants compared to GPs are really quite different. GPs are almost like business owners, because many of them are partners of the practice. They have shares in that, and they have, as well as their ordinary earnings, they have drawings there. So that's quite a different discussion than it would be with consultants, who are essentially very specialized people. They earn a lot of money, which creates its own advantages and problems at the same time. So this, things that high earning individuals have to deal with, annual allowance, lifetime allowance, that kind of thing. But other than that, really, they are just fairly normal people. And it's just the same conversations, just with a slightly different pension. But then that comes with so many advantages. The security of the NHS pension is fantastic. So it does actually make my life easy when it comes to the at retirement stage.
Yeah. Also, you can come into the conversation and be like, I also have, science background, so I can relate in a way. No, so that absolutely probably helps like loosen and get conversation going. But I also wanted to ask about you being a younger advisor, and also inheriting these clients. Have they kind of looked at you and thought like, what does this kid know? Or not that I'm calling you a kid, but I'm just saying, compared to them,
It's a really interesting one, because it was something that when I was starting out, everyone said would be sort of a big issue, and I was sort of worried about. And there's been an odd comment over the years, or sort of you get the sense that someone is sort of not quite buying what you're saying. But generally speaking, I think, provided generally, if you know what you're talking about, but also if you're honest and you're not afraid to admit when you don't know something, people know when you're being real, and they're happy with that. So it's a case of, they ask you a question. I've not come across that before. I've had quite a short career. I'm not too long in the tooth. I don't know. I'll look into that. And generally speaking, I've not suffered too much by way of sort of any kind of age discrimination. It's a really interesting topic though, because we're in such an odd time within the profession whereby, we always get these average age of an advisor statistics, and it's sort of late 50s, and X amount are about to retire in the next 5-10 years. And we already have a shortage of financial planners in the UK. So it's a fantastic time to be a young planner. And I think, the more of them around, the more normal it becomes. But no, I think probably as well, another thing that I've done that I didn't need to have done, but I felt would help me, is just do as many exams as possible and sort of get as qualified as I can to give me that credibility. So I recently got fellowship with the CII, which was sort of a big thing I was aiming for.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But if I do get the sense that someone's kind of, eyeing me up because I'm so young, I sort of drop that in and hope that appeases them a bit.
Yeah. And I think obviously if you show that you're qualified and you know what you're talking about, and also having the humility to be like, you know what, that question, let me go and do my research and then I'll come back to you. I don't think anyone can fault you for that. I think I would feel more comfortable with someone who's able to kind of approach it and be that honest. So in terms of like the resources that you've used when you've kind of been studying and stuff like that, for people who might be looking into, expanding, what have you found to be the most useful?
So I would say when it came to the diploma exams, it's probably not advisable, but I would just read the books and read them. And that seemed to work for me. I know it sort of goes against all of the sort of received wisdom of you should be doing active learning and all that. And
no, it's how your brain works at the end of the day.
Yeah, just repetition and reading. And actually I found it, the exams I did later on when I was actually practicing, was much easier because I'm doing the job, and you would come across things in your actual day job which are then applicable to the learning, which was easier. But I did, when it came to the AF exams, I did use the Financial Advisor Academy. A guy, one of the trainers who I did most of my courses with, Mark Thewlis, he was fantastic. He used to work with the CII, runs courses for all of the AFs, and I found those really, really valuable for those advanced papers, because you don't get a whole lot of it's not like with the earlier papers where you get a whole load of stuff to learn. It's much more about the application and also to an extent exam technique. So it's more of a learned process than just knowing your stuff. You've also got to be able to apply it in that exam setting. So no, that was really helpful.
No, I think that will probably be helpful to some people that might be listening that are going through the same process. So looking forward, where do you still see yourself kind of going? Do you want to kind of specialize and have more of a niche, or are you open to anything?
Again, it's a great question, because I think all along, again, the sort of having a niche is a great idea, and you can really specialize. But then one of the things that I love about this career that I was looking for in the start, and I still value, is variation, and is not just solving the same problem time and time again for very similar types of people. But having said all that, I'm really enjoying and thriving on the sort of medical niche I'm carving out at the moment. So I really don't know. It's really up in the air. I think for the time being, I want to focus on that medical niche. But who knows? I might, in a few years' time, I might think I've done that now. I might let's solve some different problems. Yeah. No, I think that freedom. That's another bonus of the career that you're in. You can have that freedom to pivot and adjust, and still maintain that relationship with the clients that you have who are in that medical niche, but then maybe expand more. Obviously, don't strain yourself doing it, but
Yeah, that's why, younger, different planners need to come into the profession. And going off of that, what would you think, obviously for you, your reference into this was because of your mother, she was someone who could tell you about the profession, but I'm sure maybe your friends were looking at you and being like, what are you doing? Okay. Yeah. What would you say is needed? Because obviously, like you said before, there's a whole conversation about people, financial planners retiring and not enough people to cover that. What would you say is needed to get, information to other people that might not be aware of this as a profession?
No, it's a great question. I think it's improving slightly, but still way off sort of the other much more well-known professions. One thing that I've seen happening over the past few years, which I think is really good, is I mentioned Next Gen Planners before. I know that they run boot camps in various universities designed for sort of students either in financial based degrees or not, to come along, learn a bit about it, and then also to have they run kind of not interview days, but kind of like career skills days where prospective employers who are looking for graduate entrants to their company can come along, see the people that are there, get to know them a bit, have a chat to them, teach them a bit more about the profession, but also learn a bit more about them, which I think is a great way of attracting that sort of graduate market, because there's, you get towards the end of your degree and then you suddenly get the panic of, right, I've got to get a job now, and there's a million things out there, and unless you are dead set on a certain career, most graduates are open to ideas, and I think the more exposure that this career can get to that group, the better. So I think that is expanding. It started with one university, they're now doing it in several, and the more that can keep growing. I think that's fantastic. But then also, one of the beauties of this career is you don't have to be a graduate, you don't need a degree for it, you can learn on the job. And by just targeting graduates, you'll be missing out on loads of school leavers who could have fantastic careers. So I don't know if there's a way of doing that same thing, but at sort of regional, sixth form career fairs or something like that, to give people that don't want to go to university or can't go to university still routes into the profession, because it's a brilliant profession for all different kinds of people, and the more variation in people we can get in, the better, really.
Yeah, no, I think those are all very valid points. So what advice would you give to someone who is, a financial advisor, aspiring financial advisor as well?
I think the biggest thing that sort of served me in the first few years of my career is just working hard and being a sponge and just sort of immersing yourself in the profession, both directly and indirectly. So things like, there's loads of podcasts out there, obviously Money Marketing amongst many others.
Yeah.
There's loads of sort of websites, groups that you can become members of, social media, that kind of thing. And just the more you can immerse yourself in the world, you'll be amazed at the amount of information and ideas that you can absorb without really trying, in addition to obviously the more structured sort of technical learning and that kind of thing. So I think that is really what I've done. Just read a lot, listen a lot, and if it's the right thing for you, if it's your passion, you'll just soak it up and really develop. And obviously that learning curve in the first few years is steep, but anyone can do it if they have that passion and want to.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today, Tom.
That's great. Thanks, Ken.
thank you for listening to In Conversation With. We do hope that you enjoyed it. Please do keep up to date with all our new releases via Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your podcasts from. You can also keep up to date with all our new content published on the Money Marketing website, as well as our print edition Money Marketing magazine, so make sure to subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. See you next time.